What happens when a rude waiter insults Sandra Bullock for helping a hungry little girl? Keanu Reeves steps in, and what he does next leaves the entire restaurant speechless.
A story of kindness, respect, and unexpected justice. It was a chilly evening in Los Angeles, the kind where the city's bright lights made the streets look magical. Sandra Bullock had just finished a long day of filming and wanted to treat herself to a quiet dinner at an upscale restaurant in Beverly Hills. Dressed in a simple but elegant outfit, she walked into the restaurant and requested a table by the window. The place was buzzing with laughter, clinking glasses, and the hum of conversations. Sandra had always enjoyed the anonymity of dining alone, but tonight something caught her eye, a little girl sitting outside, shivering in the cold. She couldn't have been older than 10, her clothes worn and her eyes wide with hunger as she stared through the glass at the delicious meals being served. Sandra's heart clenched. Without a second thought, she motioned for a waiter. #####, an act of kindness met with cruelty. "Excuse me," she said, smiling warmly at the waiter, a tall, well-dressed man with a stiff posture. "Could you bring that little girl inside? I'd like to buy her a meal." The waiter barely glanced outside before scoffing. "Ma'am, this is a 5-star restaurant. We don't serve street people." Sandra's smile faltered. "Excuse me? She doesn't belong here," the waiter continued, lowering his voice. "We have a certain clientele, and a child like that, well, it wouldn't be a good look for the establishment." Sandra's face turned cold. "You mean a hungry child? She's just a little girl." "I'm sorry, but if you want to give her food, there are plenty of fast food places nearby," the waiter said dismissively. The actress clenched her fists. She had encountered rude people before, but this was heartless. She was about to demand to see the manager when a familiar voice cut through the tension. Keanu Reeves enters the scene. "I'll take care of it," the voice said. Sandra turned, and there he was, Keanu Reeves, dressed in his usual casual yet effortlessly cool manner. He had walked in just in time to hear the exchange, his sharp eyes locked onto the waiter. Keanu stepped forward, pulled out a chair at Sandra's table, and sat down. "I'd like to order dinner for myself and my friend here," he said, motioning toward Sandra, then pointed at the little girl outside. "And her?" The waiter hesitated. "Sir, we don't." Keanu cut him off. "I'm sorry. Are you the owner?" "No, but—" "Great," Keanu said with a smile. "Then I'd like to speak to whoever is in charge." The waiter swallowed hard. It was one thing to brush off a customer's request, but to defy Keanu Reeves? That was a different story. He quickly scurried to fetch the manager, who arrived moments later. "What seems to be the problem?" the manager asked. Keanu leaned back in his chair. "The problem is that your waiter just turned away a hungry little girl because she doesn't belong here." The manager's face paled as he turned to Sandra. "Is that true, Ms. Bullock?" She nodded. "I offered to buy her dinner, and your waiter refused." The manager's face turned red with embarrassment. "That is absolutely unacceptable." He turned sharply to the waiter. "You're dismissed for the evening. We don't tolerate discrimination here." The waiter's mouth fell open, but he knew better than to argue. He shot a glare at Sandra before storming away. A dinner to remember. Keanu stood up, walked to the door, and personally invited the little girl inside. Her eyes widened as she nervously stepped in, glancing around at the luxurious restaurant. Keanu bent down to her level and smiled. "What's your name?" "Lily," she whispered. "Well, Lily," he said, "tonight you're our special guest. Order anything you want." Sandra reached out, squeezing Lily's tiny hand reassuringly. "Anything at all." As they sat down to eat, the other guests in the restaurant, who had been watching the scene unfold, began to clap. Some even called over the manager to make donations for homeless children in the area. By the end of the night, Lily had the biggest smile on her face. She got a warm meal, 2 new friends, and even a promise from Sandra to help her find a safer place to stay. As for Keanu, he left a generous tip, paid for everyone's dinner that night, and walked out with his signature humility, as if he hadn't just reminded everyone what true kindness looked like. A lesson in humanity. That night, a single act of cruelty had been overshadowed by overwhelming kindness. And thanks to Sandra Bullock and Keanu Reeves, a little girl who had once been invisible to the world was, for the first time in a long while, treated like she truly mattered. Because in the end, kindness is the best meal anyone can serve. A Night of Kindness. Keanu Reeves and Sandra Bullock's unforgettable lesson. The restaurant had never been so silent. Every guest had turned to watch as Keanu Reeves, one of Hollywood's most beloved stars, stood up for a little girl who had been turned away simply because she was poor. The rude waiter had disappeared into the kitchen after being dismissed, and the manager had stepped in to make things right. Now, the air had shifted. There was no longer an air of exclusivity or pretense, just warmth, curiosity, and admiration for the 2 celebrities who had chosen kindness over privilege. Keanu bent down beside the little girl. "Lily, are you ready to eat?" Lily's wide eyes were filled with uncertainty, as if she couldn't quite believe what was happening. "Really?" she whispered. Sandra Bullock smiled warmly and took Lily's hand. "Of course, sweetie. Tonight, you're dining with us." A waiter, one of the good ones, rushed over, beaming. "Welcome, Miss Lily," he said with a kind smile. "Would you like to see the menu?" Lily hesitated. I don't know what to pick." Keanu chuckled. "Then we'll help you." He picked up a menu and held it open for her. "Do you like pasta? Maybe a burger? Or how about something fancy, like steak?" Lily's small fingers hovered over the pictures on the menu. "I like spaghetti," she said shyly. Sandra clapped her hands together. "Spaghetti it is. And how about some hot chocolate to warm you up?" Lily nodded eagerly. The moment was small, simple, but to Lily it meant the world. She wasn't used to people caring. She wasn't used to being seen. A meal to remember. As they waited for their food, the restaurant slowly returned to its usual hum of conversation, but the energy had changed. People whispered about what had just happened. Some smiled warmly at Keanu and Sandra, touched by their kindness. A few even waved at Lily, making her feel welcome in a way she never had before. A woman at a nearby table leaned over and whispered to her husband, "Can you believe that waiter? Turning away a little girl." Another man murmured, "Keanu Reeves just showed everyone what true class looks like." And then, something surprising happened. One by one, other diners started calling over their waiters. "I'd like to pay for a meal for someone in need," one man said. "Can we set up a donation fund for local shelters?" Another woman asked the manager. Keanu noticed the shift and smiled to himself. He hadn't just stood up for Lily, he had started a ripple effect. When the food arrived, Lily's eyes lit up at the sight of the steaming plate of spaghetti. Sandra helped twirl the pasta onto her fork. "Go on, take a big bite." Lily giggled and took a mouthful, her face lighting up with joy. "This is so good." Keanu grinned. "I think we have a food critic in the making." As they ate, they talked, not about fame or fortune, but about simple things. Lily told them about her favorite books, her dreams of becoming a teacher, and how she missed her parents, who had fallen on hard times. Sandra listened intently, her heart breaking for the little girl who had already faced so much. A surprise ending. When the meal was over, Keanu and Sandra didn't just say goodbye. They made sure Lily had more than just a full stomach. Sandra quietly spoke with the manager and arranged for the restaurant to set up a fund to provide meals for underprivileged children. Keanu, in his usual humble manner, left enough money with the staff to cover meals for weeks, without saying a word about it. Before leaving, Sandra knelt beside Lily. "Do you have somewhere safe to go tonight?" Lily looked down. "I stay at the shelter sometimes, but it's full a lot." Keanu's face darkened with concern. "That's not okay." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small card. "I know some good people who can help. They'll make sure you and your family are taken care of." Lily clutched the card to her chest, her eyes shimmering with tears. "Thank you," she whispered. Sandra hugged her gently. "You're going to be okay, sweetheart." As Keanu and Sandra walked out into the cool night air, the restaurant erupted into applause. People weren't just clapping for their celebrity status. They were applauding their kindness, their humility, and the lesson they had taught everyone that night. Kindness is free. And sometimes, one small act of love can change a life forever. The lesson that lasted. The next morning, the story had already spread. Social media was flooded with posts from restaurant guests who had witnessed the moment firsthand. "Keanu Reeves and Sandra Bullock just restored my faith in humanity. I was there last night. I saw it happen. True kindness still exists." That waiter lost his job, but humanity won. Meanwhile, the restaurant owner announced a new initiative, Lily's Table, a program dedicated to feeding underprivileged children every week. And Sandra? She quietly arranged for a home to be found for Lily's family, making sure they never had to struggle alone again. As for Keanu Reeves, he simply went back to his life, never once boasting about what he had done. Because to him, kindness wasn't about recognition. It was just the right thing to do. And that, in the end, is what made it all the more powerful.
Humanity. When a rude waiter insulted Sandra Bullock for helping a poor girl, Keanu Reeves stepped in, and what he did next left the entire restaurant speechless. Watch now to see kindness in action. What would you have done in this situation? Comment below. If you believe in standing up for others, share this video. Smash that like button to spread positivity.